Good morning. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. All right. Topic of today's video is recreating our own civilization, our civilization. And if you notice, if you watch the media, let's say you watch cable news or you watch, I don't know, PBS or any of these shows in the media or on the radio, they're always talking about our this and our that, right? So there's our this and our that. And usually a lot of the times it's communists or capitalists saying our society, right? And, they like to call it ours. When the COVID stuff happened, they said, we're all in this together. Like that's this big totalitarian type of system, right? And from my experience, the main forces behind totalitarianism in America and Europe is the Vatican and the Jewish mafia working together as a syndicate. It's called a syndicate. It's people working together. And from my experience, it's the Jewish mafia, the Talmudic mafia, and it's the Vatican. And I would make a distinction between the people at the Vatican and then people who are Catholic, because there's a lot of Catholic people that I like. But the people at the Vatican have a political agenda, and that political agenda is ADL, BLM, LGBT, the continuation of the status quo. A lot of drug sales, big time into drug sales. The Vatican is huge into selling dangerous drugs, very dangerous drugs. So there's a lot of things that get me on this topic. One of them is just waking up in the morning and walking outside my house and walking around my neighborhood and realizing that what was once a quiet, peaceful wildflower meadow by the sea, a very charming wildflower meadow by the sea, has turned into just chaos. Southern California, Los Angeles, Orange County, San Diego. You got to understand that these were once these very charming, very lovely wildflower meadows by the sea where you could grow citrus fruit and avocados and raise cattle, all by this beautiful ocean. And that was turned into bringing in people from all over, from Asia, Chinese. They keep tearing up the hills, right? They keep tearing up the hills, and then selling off the land to Chinese people, or they'll sell off all of our farmland to some foreign corporation, or Indians or Chinese, like wealthy Indians, wealthy Chinese, and then they need Mexicans or people from Latin America come up to do all the slave jobs. And then they complain. I've heard them complaining on the internet about America being this big sweatshop. Well, you're the one that makes it that way by coming here and serving these corporations. No one asked you to do that. Certainly not the people that live here. So a better way would be to well, let me also suggest this. The reason why America went from, okay, like I was watching these old shows from like the 1940s, right? You watch shows from like the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s. Americans used to live in structures. They had these big building structures that they would live in and that they would exist in. Like people built cities in America. At one time, Americans lived in cities, and they lived in these big, beautiful structures. And today they live in trailer parks. Today Americans live in trailer parks. And they once lived in big, beautiful structures, these big, strong, powerful buildings, very beautiful, very aesthetic. And today, Americans live in trailer parks. I was just looking for a home on Zillow. And part of the problem in buying a home in America is like maybe you see a house. Oh, that's a nice looking house. And it was built like in the last century, right? You're like, okay, well, that's a nice looking house, but who lives around there? And like, what kind of society lives there? Who are these people? Is it all African Americans? Because I don't want to live around African Americans. Why would I want to? Is it a bunch of other foreign people that came from some other place, maybe south of the border or maybe east? Maybe they came from the Far East. Like, there's nowhere you can go and just, I want to buy a house and live around Americans. And then we can build cities and have structures. You're not allowed to do that in America. That's illegal. That's illegal. It's illegal in America to build a city unless you're going to give it away to everybody else. And hopefully in Europe, well, in Europe, in England, for example, in London, they've given away everything to Muslims for some reason. Muslims in Africa, they just gave away, and Indians, Muslims, they just gave away England. They just gave it away. Why would they do that? It's so stupid. And then they want us to fight a war with Russia. As far as I'm concerned, why would I want to ally with a piece of garbage city like London? London is basically where Muslims go to relieve themselves, if you know what I mean. Why would I want to support that? That's stupid. So so how do you build a civilization? Well, you got to start from somewhere. And there's certain fundamental principles of building a civilization, particularly for European people. The god of the European races since 500 BC is Theos. The god of the European races since 500 BC is Theos. And we didn't get that from Jews. We didn't get that from anybody else necessarily, but that's what the god of the Europe, and it's what you call monotheism. I believe the Greeks are probably the ones that invented monotheism, as we know it, and that was then adopted by other people. You know, what Muslims or Sikhs think of as monotheism, they got that from the Greeks. They called God Theos, which is the divine source of the universe. In Greek was called Theos, and Theos was known by the Logos. Of course, we find these terms mentioned in the Bible. But I want to point out to you that that the ancient Greeks didn't never encounter Jews and didn't get any of the stuff from Jews. So I posted this on my Facebook because this is a question. It's like, did the Greeks get all the stuff from the Jews? So I posted here because I looked it up. I did a Google search. No, the Greek poet Hesiod, for instance, the Greek poet Hesiod does not mention Jews. This is 3rd century BCE. So the Greek poet Hesiod does not mention Jews. And then I've got here Herodotus. Herodotus was a historian, right? Yeah. He says Herodotus does not mention Jews or the land of Israel or Judah because they were not significant or prominent enough to be included in his historical account during the time he was writing, which was around the 5th century before Christ existed. So he didn't mention Jews. Homer does not mention the Jews because he wrote before they were first mentioned by the Greeks. Okay. There is no evidence that Plato or his contemporaries made explicit mentions of Jews or Judaism in their surviving works. No mention of Jews. No historical evidence indicates that pre-Socratic Greek philosopher Heraclitus, who invented the term logos, he coined the term logos to mean the governing principle of the universe or the natural laws which govern the universe. That's another way of saying it. No historical evidence indicates that the pre-Socratic Greek philosopher Heraclitus, 535 to 475 BCE, mentioned Jews in any of his known writings or fragments. He's the one that invented the term logos. And then it also says in here the later association of Heraclitus with Judaism. Philo of Alexandria, the Jewish philosopher Philo, 20 BCE to 50 AD, interpreted Heraclitus through the lens of Jewish theology, particularly regarding the concept of the logos, divine reason, or the word. Philo viewed the logos with Heraclitus, which Heraclitus identified as the ordering principle of the universe, or natural law, right? The natural law that orders the universe. It's the laws that govern the universe. It says here, Philo viewed the logos, which Heraclitus identified as an ordering principle of the universe, as synonymous with the word of God in Hebrew scriptures, of course. Oh, it says charges of plagiarism. Now, this is interesting. Going a step further, Philo of Alexandria and the later church father Clement of Alexandria accused Heraclitus of plagiarizing or stealing his ideas from the Torah of Moses. This was a common polemic strategy to elevate Jewish tradition by claiming it was the source of Greek wisdom, which it wasn't. Polemic. What does polemic mean there? Polemic. Polemic definition. Polemic definition. My computer should be doing much better now because I got a new, what do you call it? Thing from this, wherever I get my stuff. Okay, polemic. A speech or piece of writing expressing a strongly critical attack on or controversial opinion about someone or something. Okay. Okay. Polemic. An argumentative defense of a doctrine or belief. Okay. So it's often directly confirming or undermining opposing views. So a polemic is a way of defending your argument and undermining the argument of somebody else. And so that's a polemic. It's an argument. It's an attack used in arguing. What's the etymology of that word? Comes from Greek word polemikos, warlike, hostile. Okay. So I was saying that it says here charges of plagiarism, that this was a common polemic strategy to elevate Jewish tradition by claiming it was the source of Greek wisdom. Right? So what I'm saying is that the god of Athens was called Theos, and that the god of Athens, called Theos, was known by the Logos. And the Logos is the natural law, which is the governing principle of the universe, which you call the laws of physics and biology and chemistry and all that. And additionally, the law of the human soul, because the fact that it's a law means it's an idea. And an idea the intellect is not the intellect is separate from the intellect. The source of the intellect is separate from the universe. So the intellect of the universe has ideas, and those ideas are natural laws, and those natural laws manifest as 3D images of space, objects, and energy going through time. So the laws of physics create the world, and those laws are called the Logos by Heraclitus. And of course, the source of the Logos is Theos. So Theos is known by the Logos. Theos is known. So this is a whole philosophy that came out of Athens in 500 BC. Now notice that none of this is pagan. None of this is pagan, because the ancient Greek philosophers abandoned paganism in favor of a scientific understanding of the nature of reality. So they weren't worshiping a star, and they weren't worshiping an idol, and they weren't worshiping the sun. they were understanding the nature of reality as being uh, affiliated or connected to or associated with the mind, the mind. So it's a whole subject of the mind and reality, and it's called metaphysics and physics. Metaphysics and physics. And physics comes from this other thing called metaphysics, which is the source of the physics called theos through the logos. So now, what does it say here? What does Philo say? They tried to say that. They tried to say that. Where are we at? Oh, Philo of Alexandria and the later church father Clement of Alexandria accused Heraclitus of plagiarizing or stealing his ideas from the Torah. Well, Heraclitus lives in 500 BC. He never read the Torah. No one heard of these Jews, right? No one even heard of them. Nobody knew anything about them. It's more likely that the Jews reinterpreted their own writings using Greek philosophy, actually. It's more likely that the Jews, when they came back to that territory from Persia, was it during the Persian times or would it have been during the Babylonian times? I'm not sure. But it's more likely that they would have changed their doctrine using Greek because they did. Because they did. They wrote the Bible in Greek and they used the word theos. When they took the word theos and put that as the name of God in their book. So we know that happened. We don't know that it went the other way, but we do know that the Jews reinterpreted their own writings and rewrote them using the name theos. We know that happened. So it doesn't necessarily go. There's no real evidence that the Greeks, the Athenians, plagiarized this term logos from the Jews. It doesn't even make sense. But it makes we know it happened the other way. We know that the Jews translated their books into Greek and that they used the word theos for God and that they used the word logos for the word of God. We know that happened. And that's fine. They can do that. But let's just not fool ourselves into believing that that the ancient Greeks got this from Jews. So we didn't get this from Jews. And so now the reason I'm bringing all this up is because there's all of this weird Zionist weird stuff about how we're supposed to submit to Jews. Notice how with the rise of this religion has totally destroyed Europe and America and Canada. I mean, Canada is like ridiculous. Europe has gotten, London is ridiculous. We bombed Germany for this stupid ideology, right? We bombed Germany. We destroyed Germany. We flooded it with Muslims. Who are the people that are behind this? It's the Roman Catholic Vatican, not necessarily the Catholics themselves, although some of them are. We can get into that separately. Look, okay, so let me explain something. I walk outside of my house and I walk down the street in what used to be a beautiful wildflower meadow by the sea where you could raise citrus and avocado and cattle and have these charming little towns that were built in the 1800s. Instead of that, we have cars whizzing around everywhere. And there's all these people that are from all these foreign places that are sold on coming here to prop up the U.S. Economy, which is the U.S. Treasury bond market. And then when I walk down the street and you think, well, and then everybody likes to blame the Jews because the Jews are involved, which they are. The Jewish mafia is involved. And then you think, well, the alternative to that is these Roman Catholics because they're not like these stupid Zionist Christian churches, right? They've got to be wet. And then you go by that. You go see that, and it's a bunch of foreigners. So that sucks too. It all sucks. The whole thing is stupid. The whole thing is stupid. And it's so alien because if you think of so then you've got these guys, right-wing people, Europeans are like, let's go back to our pagan traditions, right? let's go back to, what Odin and all this kind of stuff. And that's fine. You can sell I don't really have a problem with people getting back into the roots and these old stories of their ancient traditions. That's good. But you have to understand is that this whole idea that the nature of reality and the creation of reality and the universe, that's an Athenian ideology. So it's not Jewish, and it's not something you got from Jews. This idea that theos is the intellect of the universe known through the logos, which creates reality, you didn't get that from Jews. So you don't have to go back to worshiping false gods like what do you call it? It's not that they're false and that they don't exist. Like I've had these arguments with different types of atheists, actually, mostly, because atheists will say that none of the old gods exist. Well, they all exist. The sun exists, Venus exists, Jupiter exists. Those are all the old gods, right? All the old gods exist. The wind exists, storms exist, so that they all exist. And then they had stories about these things. They made them into men. They turned these natural phenomena into stories about men. So it's like a storm has a personality, right? A storm has a personality, and the stars kind of have a personality. You made them; they're like you. They have a personality. They have certain attributes. So that's not a problem. But the truth is, this is. I mean, we're not stupid. I mean, we know that the sun is just a physical object. We know that the moon is a physical object. So the source of all that is the most important thing, and that's also the thing that you come from because you have the intellect. See, the intellect is separate from the universe, and the intellect is the source of the universe. And so, in ancient Greek philosophy, which is the source of Western civilization, not Judaism. The source of Western civilization is Athens, not Jerusalem, not Judaism. That's an alien. That's a foreign alien ideology. Has nothing to do with Europe. Europe comes from Athens, and the philosophy of Athens has to do with this thing called theos, which is the source, the divine source of the universe, which is known through the logos. And they didn't get that from Jews, and they stopped worshiping pagan deities. I mean, they didn't take it seriously. It still was part of the culture, which is fine. It can be part of the culture, but that's not that. But it's just like, yeah, it's like something frivolous. It's like, yeah, that's cute and it's nice, and we have a little story, like Santa Claus. You don't want to get rid of Santa Claus. You don't want to get rid of the Easter Bunny. It's fun, but we know that Theos, the divine source of the universe, isn't any of those things. It's actually closer to us and native to us as the intellect of the universe. So anyway, the point is, you don't have to go back into these alien ideologies or convert to some alien ideology, like you've got idiots in Europe converting to Islam and bowing to a cube in Mecca and saying prayers to an actual pedophile called Muhammad. Not just a pedophile, but there's other stuff in there that's even worse. I don't know if it's worse, but equally as disgusting. Like the story of him drawing the line in the sand, and his assistant waits over there while he goes over here, and I don't even want to repeat what happens all through the night. It's disgusting. There's a lot of gross stuff. Why would you say prayers to that? Why would you pray to that? Why would you bow to a cube of that thing? That's stupid. Those are all just weird alien ideologies. And so if you're going to build a civilization, you have to start with the truth. And the truth is, Theos is the truth. Theos is the truth. It's not some ideology that we got from Jews. It was this scientific approach to understanding the nature of reality and the universe, which our forefathers in Athens developed. And it's not necessarily a perfected science because men are flawed. people have sometimes, as people think about these things, they introduce falsehoods, but that it doesn't matter what men introduce into the philosophy. The primary concept of the philosophy is true. It's that there's this thing called the logos, and the logos is the reasoning of theos, the intellect. And this is and logos, the reasoning of theos, which is called logos, manifests as the physicos, or however they say it. But so now let me get to this other thing, which is what was on my mind. Well, this is on my mind. We'll just start with this. Here's Steve Bannon. Okay, so here we got politics, right? We've got all these people in politics trying to push us in all these different directions. Push us in a lot of different directions, and they keep changing. Oh, no, before I go into that, so here was the thing because let me explain something to you. Because theos is like doesn't change, right? The intellect that's producing the universe doesn't change. The logos doesn't. The reasoning behind the universe doesn't change, right? So whereas the energy changes form through time, and organisms can change their form and their appearance through time as needed, as you get like different climates, for instance, or whatever, right? There's certain factors which can affect an organism. So you get into this whole thing of evolution, and I noticed that there was this thing that destroyed Western civilization that had to do with evolution of human beings, and that it was these groups connected to the Jesuit order and promoting hallucinogenic drugs that was pushing this idea that they could evolve human beings. So let me explain something to you. Theos, the intellect of the universe, which is a Greek philosophy, doesn't come from Jews, is known through the logos. And that this intellect of the universe is outside the realm of evolution. This is the mind. This is the mind of God. It doesn't change. This is your mind. See, the problem with the human mind is that it becomes diluted. That's it. And so the more diluted it gets, the more lies it has, the more the more drugs that you're on, the more weird poisons that you're being subjected to. That's what destroys the race. And so if you want to perfect a human being, then he would have to become more like his natural self, which is theos. And the only way to do it is through the logos, okay? The logos is the reasoning of the universe. So here, why did I bring this up? Because I was thinking about some of these earlier videos I'd made with Alex Jones promoting LSD and all these stupid drugs, right? And then you've got, what's his name? Joe Rogan's constantly promoting these drugs. And then he's got this theory that he got from the CIA that that this is how the gorillas became intelligent, because a gorilla ate a mushroom and then he hallucinated and it opened his mind. This is all this Timothy Leary bullshit that came from the CIA. Okay. All this Timothy Leary fucking bullshit from the CIA. Timothy Leary was a Jesuit. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You've got the Jesuit order and you've got the Jewish mafia, and they're working together to promote all kinds of garbage that just destroys Western civilization. They have completely ruined Western civilization. And I'm saying if you want to restore Western civilization or restore your race, you have to go back to the origins of creation, which is theos. Theos is known through the logos. So if you want to, now it says in the Bible, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. I believe that's Matthew 23, 9, I think. Be ye perfect. How do you achieve perfection? How do you achieve perfection? Through the Logos. This is the Stoic system. This is what the Stoics were trying to do. Did they do it? Not necessarily all the time, but maybe some people got close. But so you want to align your mind to what? Natural law. Natural law. And then through natural law to the source of natural law, which is theos. So you got to start somewhere, right? If you want to perfect yourself spiritually, mentally, physically, you have to start with the natural laws of the universe. That's where you want to start. Not with believing a bunch of bullshit. Not with believing a bunch of crazy superstitions and weird, just crazy garbage, which is what the Talmudic mafia and their media and the Vatican pushes constantly. That's how they they thought that was that's called a confidence game. Okay, that's how they got in control, through a confidence game, and it's still just a confidence game. I don't want to change the subject too much, but look at this new FBI director, Kash Patel. What was the whole point of him? Is regaining confidence, right? So that what? So that they could screw you even more. So they could lie to you even more. But now you have confidence because it's some Indian guy. Why does that give you confidence? I don't know. Why would putting an Indian in charge of the FBI give you more confidence? Because he wears a 1776 shirt like you. He believes the things you believe in. He believes in the conspiracies you believe in, except not when he's at the FBI. Now that's all bullshit. But the whole idea was to get you to have confidence. So what I'm saying is they developed all this stuff. They basically what the Romans did was, and the Jews, the Talmudic, I would say it's the Talmudic Romans. There's like this syndicate that formed between Jews and Romans, and this formed really, I would say, it goes back to the Greco-Roman Wars when the Greeks knew what I'm telling you. So let's put it this way. You want to rebuild Western civilization. Where was the white race last doing well? Well, they were last doing well when they were conquering the world with Alexander. See, they conquered the world with Alexander, and they went to Syria, and they went to Chaldea, and they went to India, and they went down into Egypt, and they went to Palestine, and they just took everything. They had all of North Africa and all that stuff, right? And this explosion out of Greece into these other parts of the world, these were people who were following all these philosophers that I'm telling you about, that were teaching them that they inherently were part of this intellect of the universe called theos. And that's why you get people like Alexander running around saying that he's part God. Well, he is part God. Everybody's part God because you come from theos. So yes, you are part God. You are part God. The part of you that's God is the part of you that when your body dies continues to live because that's theos. That part of you called theos, which has this reasoning called the truth, which is the logos. Well, that part of you is immortality, and that's what these ancient Greeks were emboldened by as they took over the world and made the world look like Athens, because Athens was beautiful. Now, somewhere along the line, actually not just somewhere, but it was during the time of the Greco-Roman Wars, the Romans allied with these Jews called the Hasmoneans. So, however this stuff evolved over there in Israel, at some point, the Romans picked a faction of Jews called the Hasmoneans. Ha-Shimon means the Shem, Simon. Oh, Shimanu. Ha-Shimanu. Okay. So the month of Shem, which is should be the second month, I believe. Second or third, I don't know. I think it's the second. I think it's the second month of the old Babylonian calendar. Anyway, they allied with the Hashemon dynasty, right? So those are their allies, and they were fighting the Greeks. They were going to fight the Greeks, and that's the whole story of the Maccabees. Is the Jews that are allied with the Romans are now fighting the Greeks to take back that territory, and they took it. And so, did they take it back? I don't know how the story goes, but I didn't read Maccabees. I read enough to realize that the Jews were allied with the Romans. I read that much of it. So then, anyway, and I know that's where this thing called the Hanukkah candles come from, which is totally has no tradition in ancient Israel. Nowhere in ancient Israel is there a Hanukkah candle. There's a menorah with 7 candles, but the Hanukkah thing has 9, so that's not even the same. That's nothing. That's what I like to call Roman bullshit. So anyway, they allied with these Jews, and then they attacked the Romans and so forth. At some point, they put this thing together, this religion, where they used the theories of these Stoic philosophers from Athens, mixed that with the Israelite Judea traditions, and then came up with this religion, and then started trying to convert the Greeks to it. And I think that's where this kind of weird stuff happened, where they basically, because the Romans had a lot of power, allied with these other Jewish groups that had a lot of power, they wiped out the history of the Greeks and replaced it with this new religion, and said that everything comes from the East, not from Athens, but from the Jews. That the Jews are the source of all the wisdom in the world. And so I think that's how that happened. And then, of course, being allied with the Romans, then this became like this new syndicate, which was then perpetrated against the people of Europe, who then got completely had all their ancient wisdom and ancient traditions that existed in Athens, which is the source of all this wisdom. That all got wiped out in favor of this other race of people, right? So what I'm saying is that Theos is from the Greeks. There was a name called Theodore since 500 BC. They didn't get that from Jews. Theodore means gift from God. Theos being the divine source of the universe. They didn't get that from Jews. The Jews, in fact, rewrote all their books in Greek and used the name Theos. But anyway, I was talking about the Alex Jones and Joe Rogan and the Timothy Leary bullshit. So now it says in the Bible, Matthew 23, it says, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect, in Uranus, your Father in Uranus, which means the stars. So if you want to be perfect, you have to do that through through the Logos. That was what I was saying, was this ancient Athenian Stoic system. Now what the Timothy Leary Jesuit CIA fucking destroy your mind bullshit wants to tell you is that these drugs are going to evolve you into a higher being. No, bro, that's not what happens. What you're going to do is you're going to become mentally ill. You're going to become a mentally ill degenerate. And this is what destroyed Western civilization. It's the same garbage that's promoted by Joe Rogan and Timothy Leary and Alex Jones. So I was saying how so Joe Rogan has this ideology that the monkeys ate the mushrooms and then they became super intelligent. No, see, we are from Theos. We're from Theos. We're not from monkeys. We're from Theos. And we are the intellect of the universe. And we are the intellect of the universe superimposed on an organism called a human being. Okay? So so Theos, the intellect of the universe, is imposed on an organism called a human being. That's where the intelligence comes from, and it can't be evolved. It doesn't evolve because evolution requires energy, and Theos is not energy. Theos is completely distinct. The intellect of the universe is not part of the universe. The universe is a 3D image of Theos. So it's the mind of Theos. Okay. The mind of Theos is a 3D image. It's called the universe. The mind is the universe. Now, that's an idea that I first encountered really in the Hermetic sciences. Well, it gave me the best explanation, which is that Hermetic means Hermes, which is like, I don't want to get into all that stuff, but Hermetic means like sealed, cult science, secret. Nobody's supposed to know this, right? right? It's supposed to be like this big secret. Well, keeping it a secret is stupid because then you end up with a dead civilization. The fact of the matter is that in the ancient Athenian philosophy, theos is the intellect of the universe, and the universe is the mind of theos. So it's literally just like when you think of something, maybe you think of like, I think of my mother who I miss very much. She's no longer with us. So I can see her face, or my grandmother. Okay, I can see my grandmother. I have memories of my grandmother. So I think of my grandmother, and then I see my grandmother as a three-dimensional image in the mind, right? Well, that's how the universe appears. So what I'm trying to say is, you don't evolve the intellect the way you evolve an organism. That doesn't happen. And so all these LSD weirdos like Timothy Leary of the Jesuit bullshit, CIA mental illness garbage that's promoted by Joe Rogan and promoted by Alex Jones and all this stuff. See, that doesn't evolve you because you're from this thing that's not kinetic. Kinetic means energy and motion. Well, theos is not kinetic. Theos is static. Static is not in motion. It's something that's not in motion. And so the kinetic energy that can be evolved, but intellect is not kinetic energy, so it can't be evolved. And so this whole their entire worldview is based on a lie. Okay, now this worldview that's based on a lie, the Timothy Leary bullshit, the Jesuit CIA Timothy Leary bullshit that ruined America and ruined Europe and continues to be promoted by the CIA Jesuit shills like Joe Rogan and Alex Jones, will destroy your mind. Now people think, well, I took a drug and I had a good time and I learned so much about myself. Okay, listen. No one's saying that a drug doesn't make you feel good, but feeling good isn't necessarily the right thing for you. Okay, let me get into. There's plenty of things that might feel good that aren't good for you, or not good, or are going to they're going to cause you to become mentally ill. There's things that can make you feel good that'll make you mentally ill, make you mentally deranged. So feeling good has nothing to do with anything. So these people that use that as the argument, but I feel good. Shut the hell up. Yeah, you feel good, and then you become mentally ill, and you're irresponsible. Now you can't function as you should at your highest level of intellect and ability. So what I was trying to say is, because there's a line in Matthew 23 that says, "Be ye therefore perfect." Okay, how do you perfect your life? Well, you want to coordinate your mind to natural law. You want to coordinate your lifestyle to natural law. You want to coordinate your diet, getting sun. I'll just give you what I do. Let me just tell you some of the things I do. When it's nice and sunny outside, I go for a run in the middle of the day through the hills, and I run up steep hills, and I get really good exercise. I eat really good food. I completely avoid anything as much as I possibly can that has any canola oil in it, or any weird seed oils, or any preservatives, or any neurotoxins, or things that are going to make me sick, like MSG or any of these other things. Like, I eat natural food, as high quality food as I can eat, because it's as close to the pure thing, right? That sustains your life, nutrients. I run in the hills. I get sun. And exercise. Sometimes I do fasting. Not too extreme, but I do enough fasting to cleanse, to kind of like reset my physical system, right? I avoid any kind of things that are going to make me feel bad mentally, and anything in the past that I did mentally that appears in my mind is like, oh, that's cringe. I confess and repent. I confess, oh, that was wrong. I shouldn't have done that, and I repent for it. That's about all you can do. And then you continue to go on this track of the Logos and trying to live as perfectly as you can. Well, that's the old Stoic system that became part of the Christian system, and then got wiped out when everyone said that everything comes from Jews. And of course, all the Greek stuff got wiped out because that's all evil or something. So that's how we lost our civilization. I wouldn't say so. So what I'm trying to say is, then later on, of course, we had this whole thing in the West, which is completely destroyed our civilization. So if you want to rebuild it, first of all, you need to stay away from dangerous drugs and other dangerous social poisons. Let's call it that. Who is behind the social poisons? The people behind the social poisons are the Roman Vatican. Not all the Catholics, because a lot of them are good. Most of them are good. I think they're all pretty much good. It's just that the Vatican has an agenda. And you're like, what can they do? They're way over in Rome. Well, they can control your government through the AFL-CIO, and all these unions. And they're connected to all these drug companies like Pfizer and all these big pharmaceutical companies, which get billions and billions and billions of free money from the governments to sell you poisonous drugs. So that's what they can do. They can poison you with drugs. You notice how America has turned into, like, I walk through the park, right, and with my dog, and I see it's foreigners, it's goblin people, it's we replaced all of our stuff with this. I was going back to this idea that people used to live like you go watch a movie. I was just watching Columbo, right? That's not even Columbo's like 1970s, right? Columbo's 1970s. And there's this scene where this last episode I watched, they're in Los Angeles. And there's a building in Los Angeles that they're walking around and they're filming some part of the murder mystery stuff in Los Angeles. And it's this building, and it's some kind of an apartment building. And you could tell that this is a really, really nice building. Like, it's a really well manufactured building. And it was probably built in the turn of the 20th century. So between the 19th into the 20th century, like early 1900s, right? And you could tell just by the way the doors are in the hallway and the doors and everything's shaped that this is an old building from the turn of the century in the 18th to the 1900s. And they're walking around in there, and and then all the cast, they're like all white people, right? And they're all walking around in this building that was built in Los Angeles by white people. And it's a really well-made structure. It's older. You can tell it's older, but it's really well-made. And it's like, where's that building today? And who lives in it today? I guarantee you that nobody in that building speaks English. And I guarantee you that building's a mess. And I guarantee you that neighborhood that it's in, you don't want to even be there. That's America. Who forced all this on us? It was the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican. It was the Vatican. Gavin Newsom is a Jesuit. Gavin Newsom answers to the Pope. Gavin Newsom supports what? LGBT, BLM, abortion. Right. That's the agenda. And the Catholics don't support it, but the Catholic Church does. That's the weird thing about it. My aunt, I had an aunt back in Massachusetts, big in the Catholic Church. She ran this whole thing where she was helping moms with babies. See, it's a wonderful thing. She got awarded by Ronald Reagan. I'm very proud of what she did. But that has nothing to do. But see, so what I'm saying is that's a completely different thing. I'm talking about the Vatican. They are not your friend. They are not the friend of European civilization. They're seeking to destroy you. They just like they've done to California. Anyway, so that's one thing. So now so every once in a while I go onto this Alex Jones website. So just to see what's on here. Here's Steve Bannon. Now they're trying to push this thing of having a Christian. Steve Bannon's going to say we need a 3-state solution for Israel. Jews and Palestinians, and now a Christian state too. Whose agenda is this? Listen, listen to this.
In the Middle East, Heratz, I'll put it up tomorrow.
Why does anyone listen to this?
I'm inside his head. He's very upset with my use of the word protectorate or client state or vassal state. He says that they're not, and they're a free partner, but people over there talking to Qatar, which is the Muslim Brotherhood, and Erdogan, who's going to be the security force in Gaza, and the United States team of Jared and
Does this sound like something you want to support? Qatar, the Muslim Brotherhood, the Ottoman Empire, the Turks, Jared Kushner. What is this shit? What is this shit? Why are we going along with this? That's what I'm trying to say. This is such crap. This is such crap, dude. Look, okay, I'm not going to be supporting any government, and that's not to say I don't support everything. There's some things the U.S. government is doing and that Trump's doing that I like, okay? But I don't support a government that's in some alliance with Turkey and Qatar and trying to, and the Vatican. That's so stupid. Okay, I'm glad Trump is killing dope dealers. That's great. Keep doing that. Okay, kill all the drug dealers you want, Trump. Please keep that up. And I have no problem with his. And we need ICE. We need immigration enforcement. That's great. So kill the drug dealers, enforce the border. That's great. When it comes to like these things over in the Middle East where we're forming alliances with Muslims and Turks and Jews, this is just so ridiculous and stupid and complete waste of everybody's time. Complete waste of everybody's time. And so that's what I'm saying. Wouldn't it be nice if instead of living in trailers, and some of these are nice trailers, but I've been on Zillow looking for a place. Zillow. I was like, where am I going to buy something? I want to buy a house somewhere. You start looking around, and it's like, well, is affordable, something affordable? It's like, well, is this are there a lot of African Americans around here? Because I don't want to live there. And then you go, well, you could live over on this river, which would be kind of cool, but it's all trailers, which is fine, but it's so impermanent. What happened to all these cities that we used to build, where you go live in this big city and you've got ballrooms and restaurants? And does Logos address spiritual realities? Logos is the divine. Logos comes from Theos, according to the Stoics. According to Heraclitus, Logos is the mind of Theos. That's what Logos is. So Logos appears as the physical universe, and Logos is the truth that dwells. Logos is the reasoning of the universe. So Logos would be knowledge of right and wrong. I don't know what's supernatural. I mean, Theos is the supernatural. Theos is the supernatural. It's beyond nature. It's the source of nature. So, for instance, if Theos says something exists, because if you ever want to do this equation, just sit and think, and you think, okay, so let's say God created the universe. Theos created the universe. So that means that the universe is an invention of God. And then the next part of that equation is, so then God is the only thing that actually exists. And so then you think, well, how could there be nothing existing? And what if God didn't exist either, and there was just nothing? And then you'll notice that the exact next thought is that it's impossible for nothing to exist, and therefore something must exist. And this restart, that's the impetus that creates the universe. Is this idea that it's an impossibility to have nothing existing, that it's impossibility for consciousness to not exist, or and that something has to exist. When you do that equation, it takes you right to that point of the impulse that creates the universe, is that something has to exist, and that's Theos. saying something has to exist. There can't be nothing. It's not possible. But that is the supernatural. Theos is beyond nature, and that's why you can't evolve a human mind the way you can evolve an organism, because the human mind in its natural state is theos. The human mind is in its natural state. The human intellect in its natural state is theos. How can you evolve something that's not an organism? See, the only thing that can be evolved is energy. And so when you get these people like Timothy Leary, who's speaking to these young kids, right? This satanic, Jesuit, degenerate piece of trash that was backed by the CIA, which is a Jesuit organization, to steer young people into drug use in this stupid idea that this is going to evolve them into higher beings. That's impossible, because you can't evolve something that doesn't have any mass and doesn't have any energy. And Theos doesn't have any of that, because the intellect of the universe is completely distinct from it. It's the source of the universe. See, the ideas of Theos have mass and energy, and Theos doesn't. And so when you say we're going to evolve the human mind, when Timothy Leary says, if we just take enough dangerous drugs, we'll evolve the human mind. No, you won't. You'll destroy the organism, and you'll give Theos this memory of harm, of being harmed, of being tricked, of being harmed, of being deluded, of being disoriented. So that's stupid. And that's exactly what they did. That's how they destroyed the race. That's how they destroyed America. So when Joe Rogan thinks that the monkeys ate a mushroom and it made them smart, that's the stupidest thing ever. He doesn't know that the intellect of the universe is completely distinct from it. It's called Theos. So these people think they can evolve the human mind. This is the entire mistake of Western civilization, of post-Greek Western civilization that came later. These people that came out of Judaism and Romanism, I guess, who thought that sold all these weird ideas about stuff, because Theos is a static. Look, that's why it's called the Alpha Omega, right? The Alpha Omega, it doesn't change. It's not changeable. It's the same in the beginning as it is at the end. It's just this eternal thing that doesn't need to be evolved. That's the whole point. You don't need to. First of all, you can't evolve the intellect of Theos, because it's outside the reach. It's outside the reach of evolution. It's the source of it. It's the thing evolving the energy. Theos is evolving the energy through experience. So it's the energy that's being evolved. The organism gets evolved. So when Timothy Leary, backed by the CIA, did this whole, and they just ruined. Look around. Go to San Francisco. Don't believe me? Just walk around. Walk around San Francisco. Walk around New York. Walk around Philadelphia. It's a toilet. It's a toilet. Walk around London. It's a toilet. It's a gigantic toilet. It's a toilet for people from all over the world to come and take a shit. Sorry about the bad language. Right in your town where you live. And you're going to be on drugs, and all your friends are going to be on drugs and dead. I see it all the time. I walk through the park, and there's people strung out on drugs and living in the park, and then they'll tear up the hills. The Irvine company will tear up the hills and sell it to Chinese people because they need money. It's just the whole system is so idiotic. And so let me say, I'm suggesting that you form a system that's not based on U.S. Treasury bonds, but on a civilization needs certain things. Whatever it is you need. You need transportation, you need food, you need clothing, you need housing, you need all these things. So then you just organize a civilization to produce all those things, and then everybody has them. Now notice how in the old days, like let's say the 1940s, you would buy something, some product that was made by a manufacturer, and it would last for like generations and generations would be able to keep using this product that was made, right? Because it was a well-made product that didn't break and just kept working. right? Well, that doesn't help the U.S. Treasury bond market if stuff lasts forever, because then there's no growth. You need constant growth, like a cancer. What is a cancer? It's something that just keeps growing. It doesn't grow in an orderly fashion. It just has to keep growing. It's like a mental illness of something that has to keep. It's like an obsession, right? It's obsessed with growth, and a cancer is obsessed with growing. Well, that's the U.S. government Treasury bond market. It's obsessed with growing. So we just got to get more people in here and keep growing it. Well, why not just grow your own race, and then whatever you need, just grow that stuff, and then live off of it and pass it down from one generation to the next. Because what do you see how much time that frees up? Look, if you build if you I don't know, let's take a car. You buy a car, and let's say you buy a car, and that car runs, and then you have a company that can sell you all the replacement parts for that one car, and you can just keep driving that car literally forever, because you can always just keep replacing the parts, and there's a company that makes them, and you don't have to buy a new car. Well, now the economy, the so-called economy, for the people that need to make all this money, that doesn't help them. See, what helps you, because you have a car. See, you have a car, and the car keeps running. You give it to your kids. In other words, there's this whole obsession with having to produce all this more. And what does it do? It ruins the environment. It makes it so you can't live, because you have to keep flooding zones, turning areas into economic zones instead of places to live. They're economic zones run by, whoever. So what I'm saying is, it's easy to grow cattle. It's easy to grow food, at least for us. Okay, I know there's some people in the world that can't raise a cow or grow food or make anything, but that's not the white race. That's not the European races. We don't need all this other stuff. Just make a list of all the things you need. What do I need personally? I like to eat steak. I like to eat citrus. I like oranges. There's certain foods I like to eat. So we just grow all that stuff. And it's like, I like to buy guns. Okay. There used to be a company called Anderson Manufacturing, and they would make everything you need to build a gun. It was really great. They had these lower receivers, and they'd send you an upper receiver, and all the trigger mechanism. You could literally just, you could just buy those forever. You wouldn't even have to, you know what I mean? You could just keep replacing parts. So what I'm saying is, just figure out the things that you need to live. And then those are the things that you just make those as a society. And then you have all that. And it's like, okay, now what else do you need? I don't know, a day at the beach? You know what I mean? Why make this so complicated? It's being made artificially complicated. All these artificial, at least for us, all of these artificial, like when you don't have enough of something, there's like a scarcity, artificial scarcities. They're completely artificial. Let me give you an example. In America, let's say, there's a state of Iowa, I guess, they grow soybeans, and they want to sell them to the Chinese. Okay, so you're going to take a state called Iowa, and the Chinese aren't buying them anymore because we're in a trade war with China, right? So you got the state of Iowa. Well, why would an American state called Iowa organize its race around growing beans to sell to another race of people in China to make money? Okay. Why would all of California, right? California got this big area through the mountains where it's all that area where there's all that farmland. So you're going to take that farmland, then you're going to sell it to Chinese to grow food to sell someone else in somewhere else part of the country. Why not just grow the food there and feed yourself? See, that's the real wealth, is the land and the people. Let me give another example. Why go to a grocery store, and instead of it being your race of people there working at it, and they're like, hey, there's my friend Joe, there's my friend Susie, it's these other foreign people that came here to work for the corporation. See how stupid that is? It could just be your people, and then you just have all the stuff that you want because it's easy to make and it's fun. You see, it's no longer fun to work, let's say, at a grocery store. I shop at a grocery store, right? There's like maybe there's like one or two white people working there or something. I don't know. I wouldn't want to work there. I mean, I've always I, I wouldn't want to work somewhere where like none of the people are my culture or my race or something. That's how it is in California for the most part. That's what they turned it into. So it's just stupid. Or why would I want to go to a grocery store and it's like weird queer stuff going on, right? At the grocery store that run the grocery store. I don't. I'd rather have my people running my grocery store. We have our own products. And I go there and I deal with them because I like them and I like the products. And we're not putting poison in our food. See, why not just grow food and not poison it and then sell it to your people so that they can live and they can be healthy and strong. Instead, see, this is the thing is the Republicans, because they did the whiteface thing and they said, capitalism is the way. So now you think you have to do capitalism. And I'm not saying do communism. I'm not even having to say do any ism. I'm just saying, why not just naturally have a grocery store for you and your people where you raise your own food and you deal with your people who you like because they're your friends. And then you don't poison the food. You don't put poison in the food. And you don't grow the food in poison. Why not just do that? Wouldn't that be better than so-called capitalism, where you can make the most money selling the soybeans to the Chinese or somebody else? Well, why? Why would you raise? Okay, let me give an example. Why would you raise cattle in America? Let's say in California, just as an example. Why would you raise cattle in America and then sell it to, let's say, China instead of your own people? Why would you do that? Because you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Or you're run by idiots. You're run by what's called capitalists. And there's more money to be made selling it to the Chinese and letting your own people live on the street and starve to death. That's fine. That's capitalism. Because Hitler was bad. So let's do capitalism. And let's sell all of our food to some foreign race. Or let's let a foreign race come in and buy all our farmland and then grow the food and sell it to us. That's capitalism. That's stupid. So I'm not saying you have to do Hitler or you have to do communism or anything else. I'm just saying what we're doing is idiotic. And it's idiotic because ultimately it's idiotic because it doesn't conform to the purity of the Logos. The Logos. What is the reasoning, the natural order of the universe? That's the thing you should try to conform to. And that should be the economic system. So I think I should end up with this. I would like to form an economic system and trade with like-minded people. And as far as what are you going to use as a currency? So here's my recommendation is that you can, like, I would say you would never want to make a currency that can be exchanged for USDT or USDC or any of these other things, or Bitcoin or anything. If you're going to have a currency, a private currency, you'd want to come up with a code, and then you would want that code to be a private code that can only be used with your group. So unlike, let's say, Bitcoin, which can be used by anybody, and they can be traded for what's called USDT, which is now backed by US Treasury bonds, which keeps Scott Bessent, the child molester who's a homosexual who adopts babies, and Howard Lutnick, who is the best friend of Jeffrey Epstein. Instead of keeping them going by making the stable coins backed by U.S. Treasury bonds, instead of doing that, what you do is you set up a code. You can do a cryptocurrency, but it's not on any of the exchanges. It's just something you can send on the internet. Since if we're going to use that as a medium, well, it depends on what the medium is. If you're going to use the internet as a medium, then use a cryptocurrency, private cryptocurrency. And you wouldn't want to just make it super scarce like the Bitcoin thing. Oh, it just keeps going up in value because there's only so many millions. Well, no, what you would want to do is you want to be able to control how much currency is in circulation. And you can increase or decrease the amount of currency in circulation depending on how much is needed to facilitate trade. You have as much currency, increase or decrease, in circulation as needed to facilitate trade. That's how much you have. That's a basic axiom of a currency, of a workable currency. Now, if you don't have the internet as a currency, you can use other things. You could use a paper contract, like a dollar bill, or you could use silver or gold or copper or nickel. Those would be good things to use. I like those things. But whatever the medium of exchange is, that's not even hard to figure out, to be honest with you. So that is my suggestion. My suggestion is a new currency economic system, completely separate from the US, which is on a collision course with death because it's run by psychopaths. It's run by degenerates. It's run by sodomites. It's run by mafia. And they could just go do that. I'm not saying you should do anything to them other than abandon. You should just not support that. Don't support things that are unhealthy. Don't support behaviors and systems which are deadly and genocidal and deranged and mentally ill. Just don't support that. It makes me sad. Look, when I see these green-haired, blue-haired, weird, creepy, degenerate people, I don't want to kill them. I just look at them and I think, man, they really did a number on you. They dropped you off at a U.S. concentration camp called a public school, probably when you were 5 years old. Your parents abandoned you in a U.S. public school system where you got basically turned into a complete degenerate. And it's sad that that's what happened to those people. That's how I look at America. I look at it with pity. I look at it with pity. I would love to debate some of these idiotic Republicans that like to go around saying, America's the greatest country in the world. Okay. So you like being a degenerate? Are you like some kind of a weird sodomite, or are you like in the mafia? Like, what are you talking about? The greatest country in the world. It's great. Why? Because everyone else is dead? Because we killed everybody else? So now we're the best because everyone else is dead? And what's so great about it? What's so great about all this deviancy and degeneracy and being able to adopt, you've got like Scott Bessent and what's the other guy? Pete Buttigieg and Dave Rubin, all these weird deviants adopting babies. That's America. That's the US. That's their culture. It's trash. I would love to debate some idiot that thinks that this is the greatest thing in the world. You're an idiot if you think that. You're an idiot if you think that. No, the greatest thing in the world is the intellect of the universe. That's the greatest thing in the world. And the intellect of the universe is known by the Logos. But what was I going to say? Oh, so yeah, we should have our own economic system. As far as the means of trade, that's not hard to figure out. You can either do a cryptocurrency, which is private and not going to be on the exchanges, not tradable for USDT, which is backed by Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick in the U.S. Treasury bond market, because that thing's stupid. And grow all the things you need to grow and build the things I know so many people that are competent engineers, competent electricians, competent at building things. It's just like I know mechanics that are like genius. And if we don't support our own race and our own people, they're going to die off. And we're going to be left with garbage, which is what everything is turning into now. That's what I was saying. All the things you need to survive, appliances, transportation, food, clothing, that can all be produced by our own people within our own sphere of influence, with our own, and traded with our own currency. And you'll find you really don't need that much in order to survive. You need clothes that you like, you need transportation, you need some appliances that are well made and basically last forever like they used to, and you can just buy the replacement parts. It's not expensive. And beyond that, what do you need? I don't know, a day at the beach, man. Go out and get some sun, go for a run. Why spend all day working for some stupid corporation that's just a hamster wheel? They've got everybody on these hamster wheels. And then in order to escape the hamster wheel, you start using drugs and you destroy your mind and you listen to idiots like Alex Jones and Joe Rogan, right? Instead of that, we build the things we need. We have everything we need. It's not hard to do. It's hard for some of these other races to do that never built anything and never discovered, the biggest thing they built was a mud hut. Well, we're not them. We don't have to live like that. And we don't need to introduce their ways into our society. Our ways were perfected by the Greeks in Athens in 500 BC. And that is what I'm saying. That's the foundation right there. Theos and Logos. And from that point, you organize the society around your own people. The next thing is race. Yes, there are different races, and I want good relations with other races. And other races can also benefit from this type of thing. But ultimately, start with the races that are closest to you. And you work on that. That's like the starting point. When you're forming a political organization, the polity of the people, that's a race right there. So that's where you start, and you can work your way out, and then that kind of grows, and that can there can be other races that you are allied with naturally, but not this thing but not when it's this top-down thing where the Roman Catholic Vatican, not all Catholics, but the Vatican and the Jewish mafia are imposing this death cult of buy all of our shit, take away your guns, force you to take drugs, force you to race mix to destroy the race, sell you superstition and bullshit. That's what they've been doing for a long time now. It needs to come to an end and go back to where it all started, which is in Athens. That isn't to say everything that they said was right, but the Logos is always right. And I'll end off with this, a quote. I'll end off with this quote about the Logos that I made, which is, the Logos is always right. So here's the quote. The Logos is always right. If you want to be right about everything forever, listen to the Logos. I'm going to say that again. The Logos is always right. It's not that every man is always right, or that I'm always right, or that you're always right. Sometimes I'm wrong about things. Sometimes I try and think of, calculate something, I get it wrong or whatever. The Logos is always right. The Logos is always right. If you want to be right about everything forever, listen to the Logos. And the Logos is the truth from Theos. So I'll end off on that. Thanks for listening.